Uh, we have gone through several sutras. The first one we talked about was that life is energy. Scientifically also it's been proven through the scientific experiments. E equal to mc square. Mass is basically condensation of energy. Description of a mass, we can do it only because of our senses, height and width and depth and all these things. But internally, if they really try to break down the mass into what it is made out of, ultimately it boils down to energy. Subatomic particles, they're behaving in energy, mass, interchangeably all the time. So basically, we talked about through the whole discussion that life is energy. Everything we see around is energy. The second sutra that we talked about, that energy can be in two forms, manifest and unmanifest. Whatever is manifest comes under the grip of the senses, so we call it, that's all we believe. And unmanifest goes beyond our senses, so we do not know that exists. But one cannot exist without the other, because manifest has to come from somewhere. And once it disappears, it has to go at some place. So manifest, unmanifest are the cycles of life, birth and death. They are all interrelated. So that was our second sutra. The people who make a mistake of clinging only to the manifest are the ones who are suffering in life. People who want to enjoy life, people who believe this is the only reality and nothing else is the reality, they get attached to the manifested things, and without thinking of the unmanifest, they get into anxiety, grief, dissociation from the objects of pleasure. That all ultimately leads to grief and suffering. So yogi knows the totality. Whoever can live in the total, manifest and unmanifest. Yogi does not get excited whenever manifest comes in his life, and he does not get upset when the manifest becomes unmanifest. So he accepts everything as a part of the cycle. So that was our second sutra. The third sutra we talked about that between manifest and unmanifest are just the two ends, but there is a continuation circle that's going on. The manifestation, starting from the unmanifest point, coming to the manifestation, also goes through the cycle, and the manifest itself has to go through a cycle that we call sansar, ultimately becomes unmanifest. So we decide to call it manifest and unmanifest as two separate things, but it's not. We call birth and death as two separate things. It's not. As soon as a person is born, his process of death has already started, and as soon as he is dead, process of birth, rebirth is also started. So whoever can understand the totality, then he comes at peace. So the spread between the manifest and unmanifest is also the energy. So energy is basically creating the manifest, handling the unmanifest, and connecting all the ends, totality. So energy basically is the only reality. So third sutra takes us to the spot one step further, to the samadhi, which ultimately we can experience within our own meditation. So also when we realize that manifest and unmanifest are not two separate things, that it's a continuum, and the same way we should not have fixed ideas and fixed beliefs as far as somebody is good, somebody is bad, somebody is superior, somebody is inferior. It's all relative. We talked about the motion. The only motion in the universe is relative to each other. Otherwise, in the totality, there is no motion. Everything is steady. But to get the concept, it's very difficult because we are used to only 3 dimensions. We never consider time as a 4th dimension. But if you look at like an object which has height, weight, depth, but it has a continuously moving particles within relative to each other, and a particle to another particle may be counting its own time, that I travel around you in 24 hours or 2 seconds or whatever, but it's all built in. So when we really look at the whole universe as a time, as a concept, rather than a reality, then the time disappears because otherwise there is nothing else there. So when we throw the fourth dimension of the time as a part of the universe, everything is steady. Because if you really look at it, say, okay, I was born in such and such date, Ram was born in such and such date, Krishna was born in such and such date. It's all relative. But if you put everything in together, nobody was born, nobody was dead. Everything is converting one into another, continuous and cycle. So to get that concept, the third sutra was important, that manifest and unmanifest are also continuous forms of energy. The connection between manifest and unmanifest is also energy. And that energy is responsible for basically this dance of life. All these things are happening around us, including us, is all energy. So we don't have to get excited about if we get something. We don't have to get upset about if we lose something. We don't have to judge people in an absolute sense. Somebody who may look very honest and moral may have a bad ideas or thoughts in his head, and somebody who looks crooked could have a very good heart inside. So we, instead of labeling people, we have to accept everything as it is. And when we can do that, our mind starts coming at ease. And that prepares the ground for the samadhi.
हम हर राम में रावण है, हर रावण में.
What's that?
जैसे ना हर राम में रावण है, छुपा हुआ है.
It's like this. That's what we talked about, that if you have a dimmer switch, you turn it on and put it all the way, there is a bright light there. Yes. But you can say that just 2 seconds ago it was totally darkness. So you can say there is not enough darkness in the light. And when you shut it off, in the darkness there is almost absence of light. That's all. So it's all relative, how you look at it. Same way Ram, I'm sure they have a Ravan-like tendencies, a little bit inside. Correct. And the Ravan has the same thing, little bit Ram tendency, but manifestation is different. So every time if you look at a Ravan and he says that whatever is manifesting is the bad elements, but at the same time he's harboring the good elements in an unmanifest form. So if you really see the presence of unmanifest and manifest at the same time, superimposing along with each other, then you have a total view of the universe. Just the way you say that chicken already has a hidden egg within itself, and the egg has a hidden chicken within itself. So chicken and egg, they are both present simultaneously. So the question never arises whether chicken is first or the egg is first. It doesn't matter. It's a continuous cycle. So when we start taking decisions in life about what the world is about, when we start liking, when we start disliking, that starts our journey to go from the not liking to the liking and clinging to the liking. And all this, our behavior is modified based on we believe. Whatever we believe, this is good, this is bad. If I believe this is good, I'm going to keep doing it. If I believe this is bad, I'm going to run away from it and all that. But that's clinging to the life, because we always run to achieve something that you don't have. And you want to get rid of what you have that is giving you trouble. So all that journey becomes a continuous cycle till the end of life. But until we realize that everything is just happening, then only we start going into the peaceful environment within ourselves. So winning, losing is also just ideas, because whoever wins has a temporary satisfaction, becomes a loser again to somebody else. Somebody who thinks that I beat you in money-making game, I may be losing out to somebody else in money-making game. I have this much and that much and this much and that much, and all these are like childish ideas. And that's why we talk about Lao Tse, where he says that nobody can defeat me because I never want to win. If your desire for winning is just not there, how can you call him defeated? Mahavir Swami said that nobody can call me poor because my desire to be rich is just not there. Whatever I have, I'm fine. So if there is a competition, then richness or poverty comes into the picture. If there is a competition, winning and losing comes into the picture. If there is no competition, then where is the problem? So then we talked about the fourth sutra, that out of the manifest things, there are two kinds of manifest things, conscious and unconscious. We call stones unconscious. We call ourselves conscious, the birds, the life as we see it, the one that can progress itself, multiplication of the DNAs and all these things, as conscious. But the stones can stay there for millions of years. But we don't realize that conscious and unconscious are continuously related to each other. We eat all the time. Lot of trace elements from the earth, minerals, all these things come into our body to support us. They have a temporary existence in our body. When they have temporary existence, they become part of conscious thing. And then when it leaves our body, it becomes unconscious again. So conscious also cannot exist without unconscious. So unconscious is just as important as the conscious thing. So our relative scale of importance, what is important in life also should start going down, because the conscious and unconscious are again just the two different manifestations of the manifested things. We are not going to talk about unmanifest, there is nothing to talk about, but within the manifest there is conscious and unconscious. So importance of conscious and not so much importance of unconscious is also a stupid mistake. The genomes have shown that 16% of our genes are common with the wild grapes out of everything. You think that, what do I have anything to do with the wild grapes? But 16% of the genes are common with
the grapes are conscious, right?
I'm just saying, but what I'm saying is like our connection.
Common genes with stones, I think.
The genes, but the genes for the maintenance are also requiring the unconscious things.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying, like we think we have individual existence, that's a mistake.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. So surrounding things, whether it's conscious, unconscious, they're all interrelated.
Right.
Even the grapes will require trace and elements and minerals, magnesium and iron to support itself.
Right.
But I'm just saying, so connection goes far beyond your own existence. You are not separate from the rest of the world. You depend on the rest of the world to support yourself. So the more we are all interwoven with the World Wide Web, www. So even the religious people make a mistake when they say that when somebody dies, Atma disappears and the body is left behind, body is made out of trace elements and this and that and all that. But the same trace elements were conscious at one time, and all of a sudden they become unconscious. So all these things are also mistakes, and for thousands of years, to me, the one end of the consciousness or the energy is absolute energy, and the condensation of the energy at the other end is the body. So everything in between is a loose connection.
It's a concentrated elements.
Concentrated energy, you can call that.
Energy, yeah.
So because the E equal to mc square, so condensation of energy at some point becomes a mass, and it can be appreciated, but the mass is continuously interchanging also, changing hands with conscious, unconscious.
You're extending that to saying more concentrated energy, more than a mass, is consciousness?
No, if you look at an ocean of energy, like one end would be an absolute spiritual existence, where it's totally liquid, energy can move anywhere, totally formless, shapeless, sizeless, and the condensation of the energy, when it becomes concentrated, becomes a mass, subatomic particles. So to consider the energy and mass as two separate things is a mistake, because then the question comes, where does the material, the body comes from? Where does the matter come from? Matter has to be fed continuously from the pool of the energy. Otherwise, you will have a two simultaneous existence. If the two simultaneous existence comes in, then the Advait has no value, because then Advait has to be absolute, formless, shapeless, sizeless, infinite existence. And all of us are going to be limited by the matter. So matter and energy are not two separate things. And we already talked about several lectures that it's all interchangeable. So So they are two forms, the stones and an animal, maybe two different forms of the manifested things, but they are not two separate existences. They are just interrelated to each other. So conscious and unconscious both are expression of manifest. So bread that you eat becomes part of your blood. It goes through your body, gives you the energy. And then at some point when you eliminate all those elements, becomes part of the environment again. There is a continuous cycle going on. Iron, copper, manganese, mercury, all those were trace elements which were considered dead, unconscious, also becomes part of you. Your arm gets an injury, you suddenly feel it, you withdraw your arm. So if there is any injury, that is recognized at the awareness level. So awareness knows that injury happened to the body parts, which we consider as a unconscious part. Then consciousness and unconscious should not have any connection, but there is a connection. As soon as the body gets hurt, the awareness becomes aware that the injury took place. So psychosomatic illnesses are very common, where a lot of psychiatric illnesses have manifestations on the body. Yesterday I had a girl, 26 years old, and went to 2-3 different doctors, and they all keep on saying, I have aches and pains and this and that and all that. And in India, I never had these problems, and then she ended up with this doctor, and I saw you have calcium deficiencies and this and that and all that. Calcium levels, everything is normal, and there is no reason for anybody to have a calcium deficiency until you become going to menopause. And then so basically she was getting run around and this and that, and she's losing hair, and she's not this and that and all that, and she goes on and on. So I had pains over here and pains over here. It's only 26-year-old. I had joint pains and checked for rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis and this and that. I said, do you have any problems sleeping at night? He says, yes. How did you know? I said, I'm asking you. He says, yeah, a lot of times I go to sleep and I can't sleep. I said, well, then what happens? Then I toss and turn and this and that, and then basically I have 3-4 hours of sleep, and then I have to go to work and this and that. I said, do you cry for no reason sometimes? He says, yeah. So she starts looking at her husband, and they both exchange their glances, so they say, yes, at the drop of a hat I can cry. I say, you're suffering from depression. I say, it's a clear-cut case, it's a psychosomatic illness. He says, how can I have all these aches and pains? I said, we have run all the tests. There is nothing there. There is not one disease that will describe multiple systems involvement. Right. So we have done everything. So little by little it will sink in. But I have seen so many cases. Psychosomatic illnesses are very common. But if you think that psychiatric illnesses are part of the spiritual or the consciousness, but it definitely affects. Mm-hmm. So manifest things have conscious and unconscious. Conscious and unconscious are interrelated. They have tremendous effect of one over the other. Mm-hmm. So one controls the other, one is connected to other. So all these separate compartments that we have in our head are a false phenomenon. It's a false notion in our head that manifest is separate, unmanifest is separate, within manifest, this is alive, this is dead, this is totally has no life in it, this and that. All that is also connected. So we have to start understanding the universal expression as a single entity rather than coming into separate compartments. Because the minute we create the compartments, we are the sufferers. Because once you create the compartments, then your liking and disliking starts. You start running after one, not the other, and you start fighting with this, and ultimately we suffer. So there is a continuous dance of consciousness and unconsciousness going on. So there was a case reported in 1993 actually. There was a mother, she had participated in a hypnotism experiment, right? And she was found dead at home. And they tried to find out medically, they could not find anything. But then they traced it to the point that when the psychiatrist or hypnotist, when they brought the whole group out of the hypnotism. Jokingly, or whatever may be the case, he says that when the subjects will come out of the hypnotic state, they will have a 100,000 volt of electric shock.
Yeah.
And you know how the hypnotized people believe everything the hypnotist says. So everybody had no problem. But then later on, they found out that this girl had a tremendous phobia of electricity as a kid. So that phobia intervened in such a severe way that when that jolt came out, she literally was paralyzed with fear. And then she went home, she made it home, but then she died at home. And so